All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 2025 Black New England Conference. My name is Jerry Ann Bogus, the Executive Director of the Black Heritage Trail of New Hampshire. If y'all don't know me by now, you haven't been coming. I would like to start with a big thank you to Southern New Hampshire University, our partner, for their unwavering support of the Black New England Conference and the amazing team behind the scenes. I thank our staff, members, if y'all just wave your hand. They're around here. They've been working fearless to put this all together. Thank you. The team at SNU, can raise the SNU team, if you can raise your hand. Yay. And the guys are back. For those of you who are new to the conference and those join us online, welcome. For our returning attendees, which many of you are, but believe it or not, we're going to be 20 years doing this next year. So we thank you for your support, and to our sponsors, who you'll see their names on the back of the screen, who've supported us year after year. We thank you. Thank you for your support. They're also listed in our program booklet. And we welcome a new sponsor, McConey Financial, who is here. Please spend some time with them over in the corner. Thank you. Thank you for supporting us. We will honor them again at the end of our day. We're thrilled to kick off this event, so let's get started. Join me today is Southern New Hampshire University Senior Vice President and Chief Diversity, including Officer. Her title didn't change. Jada Hebra, who will now say a few words.
Yes, I still have my title, Chief Diversity Officer, so that's something.
Diversity is still in it.
And SNHU, right. So, yeah, my name is Jada Hebra. Our president, Lisa Marsh-Ryerson, was supposed to be standing here today to welcome you, as she did last year, but she was called out of state for a family emergency. So she asked me to share these remarks for her. I'm so sorry I can't be there with you in person to say that I am truly honored that SNHU is partnering with the Black Heritage Trail of New Hampshire for the 6th year to host this powerful conference. I was blown away by the program last year and eagerly look forward to the next one, 20th anniversary, right? Year 20. Your work brings such important education, activism, and celebration to our community. This year's conference theme, State of the Union, a critical perspective on Black America from 1776 to 2026, resonates deeply with us as we approach the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence and reflect on its meaning, especially now during these challenging times. We're facing division and uncertainty in so many areas of our lives, and that's exactly why gatherings like this matter so much. They remind us of the power of coming together, to listen, to learn, and to imagine what's possible when we lead with courage and compassion. At SNHU, we are deeply committed to fostering an environment where every voice is heard, every story is shared, and every individual is empowered. But we can always learn more and do more. Conversations like those planned today are important to keep that work moving forward. So thank you for being here, for your energy, your curiosity, and your willingness to engage. I hope that you leave today feeling inspired and challenged and renewed. And we at SNHU are so very proud to stand behind such an important and timely conversation. Thanks.
So when we first sat down last year to choose a theme, there was a lot of uncertainty in the air. The nation felt unsettled, politically, socially, and culturally. And choosing a theme was difficult. After much reflection, and as we discussed the pivotal moments in Black history, we noticed something powerful. So many of the people who shifted the course of history were incredibly young. Driven by conviction, courage, and unshakable belief in freedom, these change makers changed the course of history. Today, the same spirit lives on in young people leading movements for justice and truth. From grassroots organizations to digital storytellers, they're using the tools of their time to reshape the world. This year's Black New England Conference celebrates these modern-day changemakers, young voices challenging old narratives, amplifying truths, and building bridges of understanding. They remind us that the story of Black America has always been and continues to be one of resilience, creativity, and hope. Please join us and welcome the moderator for today's conversation, Shea Stewart-Boulay, and her fellow presenters.
Good morning, everybody. Morning. Hopefully we are all awake here. I must admit I am not fully awake, but that's okay. It'll all come to me. Anyway, I'm happy to be with you this morning. My name is Shea Stewart-Boulay. I'm the Executive Director of Community Change, Inc., which is a Boston-based anti-racism organization that's been around since 1968. It was founded by Horace Seldon. I believe Horace Seldon's work was known somewhat over the years in New Hampshire. We're a unique organization in that our work has a very specific focus and that it's actually geared towards working with white people. Our mission has always been the sense that if we're going to really eradicate racism in this country, it is actually up to white people to do the hard work. It is not the work of Black people or people of color. And I think now more than ever we are seeing with what's going on in this country, it is actually the work of white people. I think that this is an interesting conference and an interesting day to have this, given everything that's happened in the country just this week alone. It feels like days feel like months, and months feel like years. I mean, it's really only been 10 months since the start of this new administration, and it just feels like it's 10 years and it's never going to end. Which means that the work that we do at CCI is more important than ever. We also work in northern New England now, in Maine, which is where I call home, Peaks Island, Maine. Other thing, and I'm just gonna be honest, I didn't really think about introducing myself because I was thinking about this amazing panel of folks. And so it was like, oh, that's right, I was supposed to come up with something to say about myself. I guess the other thing in introducing myself, I should mention, I moved to Maine in 2002 from Chicago. I was born and raised in Chicago almost the first 30 years of my life, and moving to northern New England was a big culture shock for me. Basically, I would describe it as feeling like I'm an alien that landed on a different planet, and there are no Black people here. In fact, when I first moved to Maine, I was like, where's King Drive at? And I asked somebody that, and they said, where? And I said, you know, King Drive, where Black people live. And it was like, there are no Black people here. So as a result of the alienation that I felt moving to Maine from Chicago in 2002, I created a blog in 2008 called Black Girl in Maine. My understanding, a number of people here may or may not know about Black Girl in Maine. It's kind of taken on a life of its own. It started me talking about raising my Black children in Maine, and then it's kind of grown into this huge platform, which as of the last few weeks has gotten pretty involved in talking about national politics by virtue of the fact that Maine is just one big small town. Anyway, I think that's me. I'm Black Girl in Maine. I've lived in Maine a bunch of years, raised a kid there, now got 4 grandbabies, and happy to be here. And according to my timer, we just did perfectly. So I will move on here and take it over to our next.
Hello. My name is Cheney McKnight. I am the owner of the YouTube channel Not Your Mama's History, and I'm on other social media as well. I am a historian, a public historian, so I specialize in speaking with people all across the country, so I travel primarily up and down the East Coast, talking to people about race and slavery, as well as from the 16th century on up to today, and making the connections. On my YouTube channel, I started by just wanting to lay out what a day in the life of a Black person in the 18th and 19th century looked like. And so we walked through whether free or enslaved. I wanted to pick average people because we hear a lot about the people who lived very extraordinary lives and were depicted in books. But I wanted to pick people who took every day one at a time and aren't talked about in the history books. And so that was my goal. And I also work at New York Historical in New York City. And I'm the manager of Living History, so I develop programming specifically for families, and we talk about it all. And so I also can connect with itty bitties on up to adults, the whole family.
When do you speak?
Never.
Well, good morning, good morning, good morning. I'm Ebony J.J. Curry. I am a master journalist, and I currently live in the city of Detroit, born and raised. So disclaimer, please forgive me. I'm a little Black girl from Detroit, and everyone knows it's a lot of pollution out there. So I have asthma. So if today you hear me kind of out of breath, please forgive me, or if you see me take a puff, it's that time of year. But I am a senior reporter for Michigan Chronicle. Michigan Chronicle is a part of the Black press. Our umbrella is Real Times Media, where we have Chicago Defender, Pittsburgh Courier, also Atlanta Daily World. I am out of Detroit, so Michigan Chronicle is my home. I'm also a fellow for the 19th News. And I'd like to just dive into what my role will be here today. You know, when we talk about the State of the Union, a critical perspective on Black America from 1776 to 2006, media is not a side note to that conversation. Media is actually the battlefield. Narrative is the weapon, and the Black press has always been on the front line. So I want to be clear when I say what that means, when I talk about what that means. From the very beginning of this country, the story of America has been told in a way that protects power. The story says this is a land of liberty and equality. The story says everybody had a fair shot. The story says progress is inevitable. You hear that story and you're supposed to relax and trust the system. You're supposed to believe the arc of the moral universe is going to bend itself. You're supposed to believe democracy is self-cleaning. But if you tell that story, you have to erase us to make it sound true. You cannot tell the truth about this country without telling the truth about Black people. So when I say the Black press, I'm talking about a tradition that exists because mainstream storytelling was never built to serve us. Ida B. Wells didn't publish for hobby or for decoration. She published because public lynching was framed as justice. And she said, no, this is murder, and I will name it. That is media as protection. That is media as memory. That is media as resistance. And that is why I do what I do. I'm Ebony J.J. Curry, and I'm part of the Black press.
I cannot believe I was set up to follow that. So I'm just going to tell you guys a little bit about myself. Hi, I'm Renelle Chella. It is so nice to see a lot of familiar faces in here today because I am from here in Manchester, New Hampshire. I have lived here since I was 11 years old, so as you can imagine, I spent a lot of my life being the only Black student in a lot of my classes. Not a very fun time, if you ask me. But when I was in high school, I realized just how different my experience in this country was as a Black girl, now as a Black woman, sitting in classrooms and hearing people debate about whether or not young men, young boys like Trayvon Martin and and Michael Brown deserved to die. And being so surprised that these were even conversations that had to be had to begin with, I thought it was very cut and dry, like these boys were murdered and that's just that. But I learned in high school very early on that it was not that cut and dry, because people in this country did not understand did not have the same understanding of police brutality. And so in 2016, after Philando Castile and Alton Sterling were murdered, my friends and I decided that we were done with arguing with people in the classroom, we were done with arguing with people on social media, and we were like, let's take it to the streets. So we held the first Black Lives Matter protest that New Hampshire had ever seen. And then we decided to call ourselves Black Lives Matter Manchester, but as you can imagine, a bunch of teenagers do not know how to run a nonprofit organization. So it kind of died off a little bit until the summer of 2020, after George Floyd was murdered. And, you know, for the first time in a very long time, the entire world was listening. The entire world was quieted by the COVID-19 pandemic and the murder of George Floyd. And finally, we were able to have our voices heard again. So we reinvigorated the Black Lives Matter movement. We hosted or organized protests all across the state. We had the opportunity to talk to a lot of legislators on both a national and local level, the state level as well. I was appointed to serve on the New Hampshire Commission on Law Enforcement Accountability, Community, and Transparency. It's always so long and so hard for me to say. And I was like the youngest person on this commission. I was appointed as a community member, sitting on this commission with members from the state, the AG, people from police commissions, and, you know, I was a little meek back then and shy, but it really kind of reinvigorated my desire to do criminal justice work and to work in racial justice. So I went to law school. At the time I was studying political science in 2020 at the University of New Hampshire, but then I went to law school with the desire to become a criminal defense attorney and do civil rights work. Started doing a little bit of that work and decided that I was tired of only chipping away at the system every single time I had a win or every single time I had a bit of success, and that wasn't enough for me. So I talked to my career services advisor, and he was like, what is it that you want to do? And I was like, I will go wherever the movement needs me. Like, racial justice is everything. It's reproductive justice, it's economic justice, it's environmental justice, so I will just go wherever the movement needs me. And he's like, but where is that? You need to think about it. And I'm like, you're pressuring me, like, I don't know, I can't make this decision right now. And he was like, no, just think deeply, like, where is that? And I thought for a second, I was like, I think it's reproductive rights, which isn't intuitive for a lot of people, but reproductive rights, reproductive justice is racial justice. In this country, Black women are 3 to 4 times more likely than any other group to experience maternal mortality. The maternal morbidity rate is higher for Black women. The infant mortality morbidity rate is higher for Black babies. And so I was like, you know, this isn't just abortion. This isn't just things that, sorry. I'm like telling my whole life story up here, and she's like, hurry up. But yeah, so I ended up becoming a civil rights attorney and working in reproductive rights. So now I do something called impact litigation. I go across the country and challenge laws that infringe upon reproductive health care, and I make content about it on TikTok and talk about what it's like to be a Black woman lawyer in this country. And I'll yield the rest, well, I don't have any more time, so.
Go ahead.
Good morning. My name is Antonio Saunders. I am from Birmingham, Alabama, and I now live in Atlanta, Georgia. And I first want to say thank you to the university for having us, and to the esteemed Miss Jerry Ann for putting this panel together and for her hard work in this community. You mean so much to us. It's great to meet you, and thanks for having us. The year was 1986, and I found myself in Black Disney World, which was my grandmother's farm. And around me was a host of characters: Titi, Plute, Pat, Tinkerbell, Nikki. It sounds like Mickey and Minnie had something on this place, but they really didn't. There was everything that you wanted on my grandmother's farm: homemade biscuits, feeding chickens, and the sun sort of beaming down on us all. Then came Sunday night, where I had to transition from my grandmother's farm to Kingston Projects. And Kingston Projects was at the height of the crack epidemic, and I didn't want to leave this magical place. So what does a 5-year-old boy whose father had left them do? He tells his mom that he can't go to school because he lost his shoes. And so I started protesting going to school, and that became the way that my life began to shift, the trajectory of my family. My Uncle Junior, my Uncle Albert came over to tell me, Tony, your dad left, you gotta take his place, and your mom needs you. So what are you gonna do? The next morning, I sat on the edge of the bed in Kingston Projects, and I made a deal with my mom to get out of there. We can look at the critical perspective of Black people from so many angles, but I am here to talk about today, what does it look like for a Black future and our future together? A future that, if we're not careful, when you were sitting in history class and you said, what if I was alive at this moment? What was I going to be doing? I want to tell you this bright early morning, you're there. And the real question is simply this: is it me or you, or is it me and you? Is this the moment that we are going to fight, or is this the moment that we're going to build? Well, it's an interesting proposition because fighting is the tagline of change. That you fight to make progress. You fight to create freedom. But if you want a society that's made for all people, where are the builders? Where are the dreamers? Where are the people that said the thing that we need doesn't exist yet and it's up to us? Today I want to dialogue about this simple concept. You can tell the world what to be, or you can become what the world needs to see. Thank you for having me.
Okay. My gosh, this is just a brilliant panel here. You all are just all amazing, and I'm looking forward to just jumping into the conversation right now. As we all know, the theme of this conference is the State of the Union, a critical perspective on Black America from 1776 to 2026. And I think we also know that in this moment in this country, we have seen some really rapid and disturbing changes that are impacting Black America right now. In the 10 months since Donald Trump has returned to office, we have seen over 300,000 Black women being put out of work, either directly through what's happening in the government or indirectly. Personally, I believe that I suspect that figure is a lot higher, given the number of Black women who do consulting work, who work in nonprofits, areas that have all been impacted because of the cuts that the government has made. So the first question that I'd like to kick us off with is, what do you think is the State of the Union for African Americans as we approach the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence? Who would I like to have start? You know what, I'm going to have Antonio start, because I know as an entrepreneur he's got an interesting perspective. So why don't you kick us off?
Sandra Day O'Connor was handling a racial discrimination case, I believe, at the University of Michigan in 2003. And this is what she said. We expect that 25 years from now, the use of racial preference will no longer be necessary to further the interest approved today. So what they were saying, let's paint a picture of society that says we have put in place the legal frameworks, the Declaration of Independence, the Voting Rights Act, empowered the people to really understand that slavery did happen, Jim Crow did happen. We set up affirmative action to say liberty and justice for all, right? It would always come to today where we would live in a multiracial society, a multiracial democracy that said, oh my goodness, we no longer see race. We just need to show up and everyone's equal. What happens when you want something to be true, but you haven't done the work to fully get there? You call the very thing that you should be doing as the work, the truth of the work, has now been changed. So we're all equal now. So what we see is the State of the Union for Black people, once being saying, well, why are Black people still angry? Everybody should be equal. You see the polarization of our community. So you say, okay, I'm Democrat, you're Republican. You see some of our community sort of breaking away from saying, I no longer want to be the victim in this thing anymore. I'm tired of waking up every single day saying to myself, it's Black. And being Black is associated with stereotypes about being hard, and I gotta fight you to make progress in this country. Because Black people are tired. But you also see health, work, and life indicators not only regressing, but backtracking to where my grandmother was better off than we are today. So what do we have to say for ourselves around what it means to be an American? Here's what I do, and here's the litmus test. I gave up my car some years ago, and I sit in the Ubers and I ask my Uber drivers who look like me, how do you feel about being Black? The number one response to that question is, it's hard to be Black. So I had to commit my life to actually saying, I want people who look like me to say some very provocative things, so take a deep breath. I want my people to say, I love this country and mean it. I want my people to wake up in a world where their dreams are not a reaction to slavery, but about their fierce humanity and what they've always wanted for themselves. I want to wake up in a country where when you see on TV, there's not a machine that's creating division between me as a Black man and you as a white man. But we can't be naive and actually say that's the role of the government. That's the role of you and I. The state of the country is not based off, and this is what I have to tell the people that look like me, we are not where we are because of racism and white supremacy today only. We are where we are because of our relationships with each other. We have to get back into community. We have to take the power back and actually say what's going to happen in Maine, what's going to happen in Detroit, what's going to happen in Atlanta is not just going to be about the current administration, it's going to be about what we decide. The question is our plans more about resistance, or do we actually have a plan for 2030 and 2040? I see a lot of people talking about what shouldn't happen, but I don't see a lot of solutions being put forward about what we're going to do. Right? So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna commit to community. We're gonna think about our dreams together.
Antonio,
and then we're gonna...
Just wanted to say, you're going into another question, so
okay,
if you wanna,
I'm sorry.
Because you said something earlier that I'm gonna add as a question about our future visioning for Black America.
I just got excited.
I know, that's why I was like, let me stop you before you get to the next place. Actually, I'd like to have, let's see, Cheney, I'd like to have you respond to that question, or anything that, as well as anything that you heard Antonio say.
I first would like to say that many people have many different ideas of why Black America is here now today. I would first, as a historian who lives every day living in the words and the actions and the creations of the ancestors, I would like to say it is a blessing, it is a miracle that we are here today, alive, sitting next to each other, breathing the same air. It is amazing. If you see a Black American that is a descendant whose ancestors came through the Middle Passage, you are looking at a miracle. And I have to say, I think to blame Black Americans for the challenges they face here is passing up where the actual solutions lie. I was very blessed to be raised in Black communities around Black folks. And I could say one thing we do not lack is community. One thing we do not lack is unity. It is propaganda to say that we are not united and we are not together. The reality is that there is a great diversity in Black America. I know when you look at media, we may all look like and act like a monolith, but the reality is there's so much diversity. And one thing I love about my community is that we make a space for everyone. You will hear jokes, but at the end of the day, you will come and get a plate and sit down at the table with all of us. And so one thing I would say, you cannot put Black Americans into the same box as any other community because we run different. We are different because at my table, in my house, I don't care who you are, who you worship, who you go to bed with, you will always have a plate at my table. We may disagree. So I need for people outside looking in to understand that we may fight, we may tussle, we may disagree, but we are at the same table. And I am extremely proud to be a descendant of enslaved persons. My family came here in the 18th century. I'm extremely proud. That does not put me above anyone else. And I'm proud to say that I identify as Black American, and there is nothing wrong with us. So one thing going forward, the State of the Union for Black folks is, I find that right now we're unified in many ways. I think the challenge is we have to lock in with one another and not listen to the propaganda that is attempting to break us apart and tell us that we are not together. I do understand that and understanding our diversity. That's all.
I think then it would be, given what you just said, and that we have someone here representing the media, that Ebony, I would love to have you jump in right now.
Well, to Cheney's point, yes, we are always welcome to the table, and hopefully got some soul food on there. Food to the soul. 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. Somebody needs to go ahead and cue up Tony. It's their anniversary. Bring out the firecrackers and the not-so-sweet tea. Truth be told, though, liberty and equality sound good on paper, but the practice has never matched that promise for Black people. I don't think that's a secret. This nation kept us in legal bondage longer than it has allowed for us to live free, 1619 to 1865. I believe that's 246 years. 1865, if you want to consider us free, to 2025, I believe that's 160 years. That's math, not opinion. What the kids say, the math ain't mathin'. America was built as a white man's country. And that original setup still shapes who gets access to safety, who gets access to housing, who gets access to clean water, shouting out Flint, who gets access to education, loans, generational wealth, and political protection. You can see that in who gets evicted. You can see that in who gets sentenced. You can see that in whose votes get challenged and whose votes get protected. When this country performs liberty, it performs it in its speeches. When it performs equality, it performs it on holidays, and we get the day off. Bring out the barbecue, y'all. But when you look at outcomes, freedom remains conditional, and equality remains negotiable. That's why narrative is so important. That's where media, Black press, Black journalists must stand up. That's where we must stand tall and stand together. Narrative makes all of that possible because the administration knows this. If you control the story, you never have to fix the structure. So, happy anniversary, America.
Ooh, thank you. Thank you for that. And you want to go?
I don't know if I have anything to add after all that. Yeah, I mean, I think in general, just thinking about liberty and equality, these are things that were never promised to us, things that were never meant to include us. And I feel like as Black people in this country, we are forcing this country to live up to those promises still, even now. And, you know, those promises are still unfulfilled in so many different ways, unfortunately. And everybody up here talked about in many different ways how that's true. But I think that, you know, we've made those things our own in terms of joy and resistance and innovation. And I think that's really important. And that's just the last piece that I will add. But everybody up here just, you know, summed it up all beautifully.
Well, thank you for that. So I feel like there's so many different directions that we could go in, but then something that Antonio said, and it's one of the questions that I was considering. So we could go down the road of looking at all the things that are wrong right now. But I think it's important, especially because of just the makeup of this panel, to really think about what does a Black future look like? If we were going to shape, if we were the architects of taking what's happening in this country and using this as a turning point for us, thinking of our community, the unity that does exist within it, what would a Black future look like? And also, what would a Black declaration of interdependence look like? So part of envisioning our Black future is having a Black declaration of interdependence, one that would redefine what it means to belong and build community in this nation, and hopefully taking that vision that we create and lending that to the larger community. So envisioning, what does the Black future look like? Who would like to go?
Okay. It will start with the truth. We have always been the backbone of this democracy, even when it refused to claim us. So it would say no one is free until all of us are safe, housed, and educated. It will not beg for inclusion, but it will declare belonging, because the labor, culture, and vision of Black America are the blueprint for this nation's best version of itself. I think of this book I'm currently reading, Sky Full of Elephants. And in that story, all the white people in the world walk into a body of water and drown themselves. A world without whiteness. Without that constant gaze, the constant measure forces Black people to ask, who are we without them watching, without comparison, without performance? What does self-actualization look like? And what does true freedom require? So that, to me, is the real Black declaration. Not just freedom from oppression, but freedom from the idea that we must define ourselves through it. It's not imagining a world without white people, but it's imagining a world where we are fully ourselves, where liberation means more than survival, where our existence isn't reaction. It will mean our resistance is the creation. A Black declaration of interdependence would remind America that we are not guests here, but to Antonio's point, we are the builders, and we have been since the very beginning. So.
Okay, thank you. Antonio?
I think one of the shifts that we need to make in terms of like how this would feel, it probably would feel like my grandmother's farm, like Black Disney World, right? And what was that feeling? It was the feeling of everything I need, everything I want, everything I desire is in reach, but actually how do you get there? Right after George Floyd's murder, I was leaving a career and people began to call me organizations that were in crisis. And one of those people who called me was an organization, a white CEO out in Silicon Valley who had had a breakdown with her Black staff. And they called me in as essentially Olivia Pope. Did y'all watch Scandal? I didn't. I never watched Scandal, but they would be like, Antonio, you do this kind of work, you go around and you just, you swoop in, you go into the crisis. To my sister's points here, it is so interesting that when things are going wrong, they are calling in people who look like me to come in and fix the thing. So I came in and fixed the thing, and they gave me 24 hours, you all, and they said this to me: this CEO can stay or they can go, or you can become the chief diversity officer. And I said, I'm not gonna be a black face in a high place. But what was more radical was what I was about to do next. After George Floyd, black CEOs were stepping in and white CEOs were stepping down in some places. So I made a choice and I said, this white CEO would not leave, she would stay. Now a crowd of faces were confused. The white people were like, take her down. The black people were like, she harmed me. If we are gonna actually go into a society, we are gonna need white people to do something they have not done before. And that is become capable of creating an environment for all of us that is not harmful. So I asked that CEO to stay. And when she stayed, we started meeting every single Wednesday. And 4 years later, we're still meeting. She stayed in that organization. She created an organization where people who look like me can thrive. And in that, she set up a precedence that if you're going to actually be a CEO and you're gonna do right by the communities that you say you're harm, this is how you do it.
Can I ask you, Antonio, taking that kind of context, which I think is great in that sense, how would you apply that to sort of this larger black visioning of our future? Because I think that's kind of what I want to hear, like taking that, how would we apply that to our vision? Like if we were working together right now, creating our vision board, what could you take from that for our collective black future?
Diane stepped down and she was replaced by somebody who looked like us. And it wasn't a cleanup situation, it was being adequately set up. So she's not transitioning the organization to a person of color in a time of crisis, she's transitioning the organization when that organization is resourced, it's stable, and it's ready to be led. It was a transfer of power, wealth, and collectivism. And some of that has to go on. We have got to actually say that this country is actually ready for black entrepreneurs, black leaders, and black wealth, something that I believe that this country has always been uncomfortable with, right? And so when you see that Fortune 500 companies are largely right now still ran by white people and only less than 4 of them, 4 black people lead Fortune 500 companies, that means that the very essence of this country, capitalism, wealth building, having legacy and community is not gonna be hoarded by one group, it's actually gonna be distributed by all people. But let's get this right. If you wanna talk about eliminating the wealth gap, we have to be the people not at the table receiving the jobs, but we have to be at the tables actually leading the jobs and creating the jobs. So that's what I would say.
Okay, all right, thank you for that. So I just want to make sure, clarifying for myself, because you said a lot there. So what you see as part of building this, envisioning this black future for us moving forward, really feels like, if I heard you correctly, it's sort of rooted in sort of shifting who controls the wealth?
Absolutely. Okay. It is a wealth transfer. It is a wealth transfer in power first. And who actually
I don't want to get off track because right now I'm feeling a little bit like I want to throw this train off the track and talk about the role of capitalism and how destructive it actually is given what we're looking at in this moment. But I think I'm going to keep the train on the track right now. And I'm going to ask somebody who hasn't spoken yet, because I know I've allowed you to kind of go down there. So I wanted to ask one of the sisters who hasn't spoken to sort of chime in with your vision.
I guess. I think one of the things that I do, in my work is actually helping people to deconstruct systems so that we can rebuild them together. I find that in order to go forward, it's not going to take some bubble gum and tape. We got to demolish it and build something new. Just at I go into historic sites all the time, and I know They get real nervous when I start talking about we need to tear it down and rebuild it. I'm like, y'all, not the actual building, not the actual building. I talk about the organization, and we've got to figure out how are we going to rebuild this collectively. I'm sorry, us doing piecemealing, repairs, you know how it is. I live in the old brownstone in Harlem. And, years and years of piecemealing, reconstruction of plumbing, it all at one point is burst and broken apart because no one ever went through and actually took it all out and reinstalled it. So, and it's not going to be people that look like us who are going to be able to tear it down. I know many people want us to race out in front of incoming traffic to stop this caravan of pain coming for us, but it's not going to be us. I think one thing I hope that Black folks demand is demanded more loudly and directly is for people to leave us alone. We don't need to be fixed. Stop trying to fix us. Stop trying to save us. Just leave us alone. As a historian, I have studied hundreds of Black communities who were very successful, are successful. They are left alone and allowed to just exist and live. And they naturally interact with other communities. That is what I think when I look at a future. Leave us alone and let us live. And I assure you, I am the biggest fan of my community. We will succeed.
Ooh, that was so powerful. Thank you. Thank you. Listening to you, I was just thinking of something that DeRay McKesser's, I always screw up his name. DeRay, the guy with the blue vest, everybody remembered from Ferguson on the Ground. And sometimes we follow each other on our personal Facebook page, and he'll just say, I love my Blackness, and I love your Blackness. And I think in this moment, I just wanted to say that because I think it's so easy in the energy to forget that, we are a community of unity. And that, the reason that we survived, the reason that our ancestors survived is because there was unity. I know in the green room, we talked a little bit about where most of us were from, and most of us, it seemed like, have roots that go back to the Great Migration, which means that our grandparents, depending on how old you are, it was my grandparents, but my dad and all of my aunts and uncles actually picked cotton after school because they were sharecroppers. And when I think about that leap in just 2 generations, it was because we loved each other and we had unity and community. And I think it's important not to lose sight of that. And I also know that we only have a few more minutes left. I feel like we just did not have enough time to really get into a deep conversation. So I don't know which question I want to go with, but before I figure it out, this last question, did anybody else want to talk on envisioning what this Black future looks like? Okay. So I think my last question is, it's really in response to something Cheney just said, leave us alone. Thinking about the reality that right now we're talking about the state of Black America, but the reality is the state of America as a whole is about to crumble and crash. I'm sorry for anybody that thinks a midterm election is about to save you. That maybe you don't think a man who just tore down the East Wing is about to give you a free and fair election? His boy Steve Bannon already told you he ain't going anywhere. Okay? So we need to stop clinging to this hope that these systems are going to continue to save us. Including systems of capitalism, because I think ultimately, as 42 million people in this country prepared to lose their food benefits in the next week, we're about to see some changes and shifts in this country that none of us could have imagined. Which then speaks to the role of community, and since this is a focus on Black America, you talked about leave us alone. And as I heard you say those words, I thought about my childhood growing up in Chicago in a neighborhood with a Black banker, where everything in my whole childhood was Black. The only person that I ever saw regularly that wasn't black was the Greek insurance guy that came on Saturday mornings. For those of you of a certain age, remember the insurance guy used to come to your house? I don't know if people remember that, like you didn't just send it in mail. Well, in the black neighborhood, the insurance guy came to your house on Saturdays, and you paid him and you knew his name and all of that. So when we think about leave us alone, what do you think that looks like as we move forward? Because right now we also can't ignore in this moment what's happening racially. The United States government is making it very clear that they wish to turn this back into a white country. Our government now puts out daily propaganda. U.S. Department of Homeland Security has some extraordinary propaganda about what an American looks like. And if you look at any of those clips, they never look like a bunch of us in this room. It's always white people. So to end this and thinking about it, what would it look like as we watch this country self-destruct and like reconfigure it into something? What does it look like for us to thrive while being left alone? Accepting that there are some who might say that integration was always like the worst thing that happened to us in many ways. What would it look like to say, you know what, as we all try to grapple with our survival, leave us alone and we will thrive? What would that look like? And I realize that is a completely off the track question, but I kind of feel like it needed to be answered, so.
It looks like self-actualization. Like I said, I'm a black girl from the city of Detroit. Anyone in this room will know that Detroit has the largest black population in the nation. Memphis like to claim that they do, but I'm gonna stick with Detroit. And right now, we are at a precipice where, for the very first time in Detroit's history, a black woman is up to be mayor of one of the largest black populated cities in the nation. We have over 650,000 residents in Detroit. That right there itself is very powerful. I think for me, that kind of goes in the pocket of leave us alone, because if you know anything about Detroit, for the past 10 or 12 years, when Mike Duggan has been over, completely changed Detroit around, downtown Detroit. It looks real cute. You can have a good time. It's a walkable city. We have bike lanes now. You see white people out jogging, when once upon a time we used to look like baby Saigon, after the 1960 riots. For the longest, it was messed up, but here come the white man came in and saved us. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Right now, the call to action, though, is thank you for allowing our downtown to look beautiful and attracting tourists. But what about our community, our neighborhoods where we live, where black people live? What about us? We're screaming. And your question is, what does it look like for us to thrive while being left alone? As we talked about today, it's about community. It's about us standing together, sticking together and saying, no more, we're going to give them these little cutesy things. Now it's time for us to say, no, we need grocery stores around. No, we don't need another power plant in the 48217 zip code, which is the most polluted zip code in Detroit, in the state, and possibly the country. So what we need is reform. What we need is affordable housing. What we need is basic necessities. And that is what it looks like for us to thrive.
Ooh, thank you. So we think we have about 4 or 5 minutes left, though, because I know someone put up a sign there and I'm trying to watch it, but we also started a few minutes late. Given that this conference and all the people in this room are primarily based in New England, I actually would like to have Ronell answer that question within the context of the fact that, Black Northern New England is a really different space than Detroit, Atlanta, Chicago, where I'm from, where we don't have a geographic black community in Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont. So what would it look like for us to say, leave us alone so that we can build? Is that even a possibility for us as black people living in this region of the country? So I'm gonna give that one to you.
Sorry, y'all, I'm kind of not feeling well up here now, but that is a very heavy question, especially when you live in a state like New Hampshire that's 96% white. New Hampshire is the 4th whitest state in the country. By every census, it's like Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire. I think maybe now West Virginia is the 3rd and we're the 4th, something like that. And so when I think about leaving us alone and how to thrive, like after several years of doing this work, I just think about rest. And I know that that sounds so selfish, but like I think about being able to just exist and not have to worry about being on the front lines and not have to worry about who's going to go in front of the state legislature, who's going to be going in front of the city council, who's going to be creating the programs to make sure that our communities survive. Because right now, that's organizations like Black Lives Matter New Hampshire. We have the largest mutual aid fund in this state. We give thousands of dollars every single year to people in the state that need help keeping their lights on, going to school, fixing their cars, getting health care. So much work is put out by Black people in the state of New Hampshire, and there aren't even many of us here. We need every single thing that you said that we need. We need every single one of those things to thrive. But at the same time, we also need to rest. We need to prioritize ourselves. We need to prioritize our health. I'm sitting up here talking about not feeling well up here, and it's because of the fact that I'm always doing things like this, and I love it so much, and I'm so passionate about doing this work, but I don't spend enough time taking care of myself. And it's because as a Black woman in this country and in this state, I have not been able to just exist. And I crave the ability to just exist in my own self and to just enjoy living life. And so when I think about what the future looks like, it's a future where we can just exist within each other and enjoy community and enjoy living amongst each other. Ooh.
Can I add one thing to that?
One quick thing, because I'm going to wrap. I was going to say a word or two before we close out, because we got about a minute, so you got to have 30 seconds.
Yeah, so to me, to leave us alone would mean exactly this is we don't think about our freedom, but we live our freedom every single day. And we live our freedom in our community. We live it among ourselves. And it's no longer an aspiration. It is the lived experience of us. Therefore, we can rest. We can be in community and we can thrive, and it's no longer an idea, it's our actual lived experience because we are free.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for reminding me, because I would have walked off and got coffee. Anyway, I just wanted to, before we go into the Q&A portion from the crowd, I really wanted to piggyback off of what you said, because as an older woman who's been doing this work in Maine and throughout the region, the rest piece is so powerful and it's so necessary so that you don't end up like me in your 40s being diagnosed with hypertension because you're stressed all the time. And I think sometimes, because I know the work of the trail and the community, and I know that it's a racially diverse room here and there are a lot of white people who are part of the work here, but I really think that part of our getting free in areas like this requires white people to realize you need to do more. Stop asking us to show up. If you show up, pay us. But more importantly, create space so that we can rest, so that you don't have the same 12 Black and brown people showing up at our state houses, always having to go, go, go. So part of the freedom for us, in order to get to the type of freedom that you might be able to see in Detroit, for us is going to be able to start with having some rest so we have time to dream those dreams and to organize better. So at this point, we will turn it over for questions and answers. We've heard a lot here, and so I'd love to hear from folks in terms of any questions you have.
So just give us 1 second. We need 2 of the mics.
Yeah, I didn't know how we were about to do that.
You want to start right here?
Yep, I'll start right there.
Okay, let's try again.
Good afternoon. My name is Alan Knight. I am from Boston. This is a great program we're having. I'm grateful you are coming on the panel. I'm grateful for everyone in the room. A question is open to the panel. What do we do when there's not an easy solution? No, if it was, it would be fixed, though. but there's so much apathy out there. We got the same, any meeting you go to, community meetings, work-wise and all, it's the same people putting in all the work. And unfortunately, we're burning ourselves out. And yet, so everyone sit here talking, maybe in the hair salon, the barber shop, complaining about what the problems are. Not talking about what solution, but just talking about the problems, hashing the back and forth though. So there's so much apathy out there. What can we do to try to bring more of our people into the conversation, into the workspace?
So thank you for asking that. I find that, so this is the work that I directly do, working within my community and attempting to bring more people in. I grew up with my parents and my extended family actively doing this work. So this was natural for me to just go to community meetings. This is not the case for everyone. And so we have to build more. It may take more work on the front end for someone like myself in my community and creating more events to get especially the younger folks involved. So one event we did was a Pokemon Go a few years back. And we brought them out for an event. And while they were there, we engaged them in actually connecting some of these dots with Pokemon Go and actually how do we participate in a democracy, knocking on doors, even how to go up to someone on the street and have conversations, or conversations in day-to-day lives. How do you interact with other people around politics? Something that some of us, it comes natural to us. Those things were taught to us. And there are many people in our community who that was not taught to them. And so I think it takes some of us doing more events like that and meeting, especially our young people where they are, and just educating them. It's very fascinating. I have 3 mentors now that's we developed that relationship starting from events like that years ago. Yeah.
Anybody else want to take a shot at that?
Yeah, for me, I think it starts at home. To Cheney's point, my dad, he was a professional boxer, and I used to watch him, go to the gym with him and watch him mentor other young black boys who looked like him. My mom, she was also a journalist working for the Michigan Chronicle. Then she became a social worker, giving back to the community. Both of them would have me go into these city council meetings, and I'm like, this is so boring. But as I grew up at 9 years old, I said, you know what? I want to be a journalist. I want to be a reporter, because I'll watch the news and I'll see like, well, that's not what happened in the city council meeting. And why did they use the black guy who said the most craziest things? Why did they put him on the camera? I want to use the person that. So at 9 years old, I realized this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I think the main thing that we can do to push the people, because a lot of times the people in the barbershop, the people in the hair salons that are talking about all of the issues, a lot of times they aren't the ones who are doing the work. And I think the biggest thing is to push them or challenge them to go to a city council meeting, because we have to hold our elected officials to the fire. If we're quiet, then for them, they feel as if all is well. But if we show up in masses and if we express our concerns, then things must be changed, which is why a lot of the streets in the city of Detroit, I'm only referencing Detroit because that's where I'm from, y'all. In the city of Detroit, a lot of the communities didn't have street lights. But if you go to city council meeting and you saw all of the residents coming together, guess what? Now there's street lights. Going to these meetings and talking to the people that you elected, that's how we're going to change. Community elections are, yes, the presidential election is super important, but community elections, the Board of Education, that is super important because it impacts our everyday lives and our kitchen table issues. So hopefully that answers. Push your people.
Great. Is there another question? Oh, over here? Okay. There we go.
Hi, my name is Duke Addy. I'm a student at St. Anselm College. And in reference to the previous questions that were being asked for our panelists about the future of us as Black people as a community, but also the question of just leave us alone. This is, and I want to preface this is going to be a bit of a controversial question, I think, but it's a real question. It's a bit of a heavy one, but I think it's one that we have to grapple with. For the question of us and our future as Black people, what do you think the relationship with white people will look like as an end goal? Because it's something that we've grappled with for a long time, and there are people that say we keep them at arm's length, we build ourselves, but there's a question of, do we have the resources for that? Do we have the money? Do we have the support? On the other hand, there are people that encourage we should place our trust and rebuild connection with white people and heal. But on the other hand, we consistently have our trust broken, we are consistently hurt, and we consistently have what we build broken down and destroyed. So with the question of leave us alone and with the question of our future, what should our relationship with white people look like in the future?
Wow, I don't think that's a controversial question. I think it's a really real question. I think it is a question that, given the state of this country, I'm going to let the panelists jump in for a moment, but I'm going to say right now, there's not a lot of trust, at least for me. 2016, Trump won. What was it, 53% of white women? Was that the figure? That figure didn't change much. Now online, you see all the performative white ladies, and spaces like this, you see all the performative white people who will tell you, like, we're doing the work. Somebody didn't do the work, because from 2016 to the moment, we got more racist. How do we acknowledge the fact that Gen Z young white men, they're pretty racist. They fell largely for Trump. They're all into the dead podcaster world. I'm not going to say his name. And so to me, it's like we're missing trust. I'm going to let one of you all go, but I just had to jump in and say, when we think about a future, maybe it needs to be a future where there's trust, because, see, we can't build anything together if there's no trust. And I would say right now, speaking for myself as a Black American, white people as a collective, I don't hold a lot of trust for, because you don't show up. Anyway, I'll let one of y'all go.
Great question. I think one of the important things to leave us alone is, I also am not looking for your help, your money, your time. So one community that I look to for a lot of inspiration are Black farmers. Black farmers for a long time have had to rely on just themselves and their communities. I come from a long line of Black farmers to this day, and there was no help from the government. There was not a lot of help from organizations, and they had to figure it out within their community how to survive from the shifts from different seeds, from different crops. They had to figure it out themselves. And I am saying, I trust in my community. I trust in us to be able to figure it out for ourselves. When I say leave us alone, I completely mean that. I do believe that there is a space for connecting, but the reality is we cannot come to terms equally if we are considered less than, or being considered as you are coming to this table as my charity case. So leave us alone so that we can meet you as equals, and we will. My community is beautiful and open-armed, but we have to meet as equals.
I want to be extremely clear when I say this. When I say leave us alone, or when we're talking about that, for me, let's not be racist. Let's not try to take things from me. Let's not try to say, I am a rioter when I am protesting. If you look at the George Floyd situation, let's be honest and let's say that was a modern day lynching. It was televised. We saw it. We heard it. We heard the cries. We saw where it crossed the line. But because my community was enraged, we got called rioters. Look at January 6th. Storming the Capitol. For them, it was a patriotic act. They were trying to go ahead and save the government. So when I say leave us alone, I don't mean you have a whites only drinking fountain and I have a blacks only drinking fountain. No, it's more so, let's not try to break me down while you're trying to lift yourself up. Let's not just call black press, oh, that's not real journalism, that's just advocacy. Let's come together and meet at the table, but also understand your privilege and also understand what was taken away from us. That is not ancient history, it's still happening today. It's still happening today. Look at the percentages of black-owned entrepreneurs, small business owners being able to get loans. It's very low. Look at black tech entrepreneurs. People are like, tech? Black people? You're not that smart. No. I think it's time for us to say, hey, this is a problem. And this isn't a problem that just happened today. This is a problem that has happened for centuries, since the beginning. 1619, let's not ban that book because my girl Nicole Hannah-Jones was real. And last but not least, I think it's very important to note that not only am I a part of the Black Press, I'm also a fellow for the 19th. The 19th News was founded by a white woman who understood her privilege, who said, hey, this is something I can kind of work towards. I asked her, I said, well, why did you choose to find the 19th? And she was very candid with me. And she spoke about how she looked at her little girl and she said, oh my goodness, my little girl aren't gonna have the same rights that I did as far as reproductive rights. So I gotta fix this for her. But then she realized, wow, that was a white woman saying some white privilege sugar honey iced tea, excuse my French. And at the end of the day, she brought in Aaron Haynes, who's now the president of the National Association of Black Journalists, to become the editor at large because she understands that we both have to sit at the table, but we have to tell the truth about us as well. So that's what that means.
I watched my grandmother bake the cake and eat the crumbs. And the black women around me were expected to do that. And I would say that what we have to contend with is the lack of trust, but being told that you should stay in your place. And then saying you have equal access to everything. When America puts its foot on your neck and then says, make it and thrive, it is a hard condition to live in. We can no longer just sit back and pretend that everything is okay, because now we've reached the point where young white men in particular, and there's a word, you have to study this, it's incels, they are being socialized in these groups with theories that America is being taken away from them. That is radicalization. But when you see on the news the profile of the people who are being deported and who are the criminals, they look like me. What we have to contend with is there's something going on with white boys in this in the world, and why are they being brought up to hate people that look like them? I'll just give you an example, and I'll turn it back over to the audience. I went to the University of Alabama. It is a striking phenomenon in this country that we can go out on a football field and celebrate black boys who go out and do so much for SEC schools and then lock them up and then pretend like everything is okay. The top two DEI organizations in this country are the NFL and the NBA.
Whew. Very powerful there. Oh, okay.
Hi, thank you all for a wonderful panel and a great group of presenters. I have a question in reference to comments that were made about breaking down the government or the system, and keeping in mind that the East Wing has been torn down, has been destroyed. And I'd like you to envision what you would do with the budget that is allocated for the East Wing. What would you do with that budget, and what would you do if you could build whatever you would like to build? Also keep in mind that I heard Donald Trump say yesterday that if there's not enough money, he would donate whatever is needed to complete the project. What would you do with all that money?
Who would like to take that one? Go
Real
ahead,
quick.
Cheney.
Okay. I wouldn't do anything with it. I would convene a council of my elders and put it to them to determine what to do with it. I think one thing that has worked within our communities for a long time is going to the elders and handing it to them. So that's what I would do, because I don't think that I myself could speak for my entire community or come up with solutions that would support the most people. I'm very limited in my knowledge and understanding, but I do trust the elders in my community to know what to do. They'd probably have a better solution.
Okay.
Well, they're defunding HHS and basically every other agency in the government right now, which makes no sense while, doing projects like this. So I would pour money into that. The Department of Health and Human Services is an agency that helps fund maternal mortality review committees that are run by states. And because of this defunding, there are a lot of states that will not have the capacity to run maternal mortality review committees. I talk about this specifically because of what I talked about earlier, which is being a reproductive rights attorney and being extremely passionate about addressing the maternal mortality and morbidity rate in this country, figuring out why more Black women die from postpartum hemorrhaging and other pregnancy-related complications and things like that. And so this question kind of reminds me of the question that people ask, and they're like, oh, what would you do if you had all of the money in the world and money wasn't an object? And I always turn towards addressing maternal mortality and morbidity. So, while the Trump administration is defunding all of these agencies that are critical to the functioning of this nation, that is immediately where my mind goes to. Very niche, but yeah.
If I ruled the world, I think it's very simple. It goes back to community, where we live. I come from a city where a lot of the communities don't have grocery stores there. They have Dollar Generals and liquor stores, and who wants to buy produce from Dollar General where there's not? You have a lot of McDonald's. So we'll go towards the community. We'll go towards grocery stores. We'll go towards healthcare for elders, because a lot of times Medicare isn't enough. It will go towards finding cures for asthma, because little kids that live in the city of Detroit, specifically the zip code 48217, is very polluted. Every kid that you meet there, I promise you, will have asthma, will have eczema. Every adult you meet there will probably have had a bout with cancer, or has cancer, or 2 seconds away from cancer knocking on their door. So we'll go towards that. It will go towards my auntie not having to worry about if she can afford her insulin for the month. It will go towards CVI, community violence intervention groups. Huge, especially in urban cities. It will go towards the betterment of my community, where they can have tangible outcomes, tangible reminders that they are wanted, that they are needed, and that they are people too. So we'll go towards simple things that makes a huge difference. I think it's as simple as that.
Anybody else on the panel want to there's another question?
I've been asked to read one from the chat that's come through from our listeners and participants online. And it's from Brandy Brooks. She said, I love my Blackness, and I love my Latinness, and I love my Scottish ancestry. As someone who is multiracial, not only in my beloved community, but also in my very bones, can someone cast a vision for Black America that doesn't cut me and my family and my relationships into pieces? My Blackness is never alone, and I never want it to be, but I do always want to be treated with love, care, respect, dignity, and support with my Blackness intact.
That's a great question. One of you haven't. If I understood you correctly, the person who sent their question in is multiracial, and they want to know that in our vision for Black America, are we making space? How are we making space for multiracial individuals?
I think a lot of times we make simple things so complex, and it just so doesn't have to be. Be you, stand true in you. Also understand that with everything that you carry all of your heritage with strength and with pride and with dignity and with hope. Also understand the Blackness that is within you is a part of that as well. One thing doesn't trump the other. This isn't, oh, if you have 2/3 Black, then you can't. This isn't the brown paper test. You don't have to go through all of that. Although yes, we have a long way to go, but we've come a long way. So it's okay. It's okay to say I'm Black and I'm that. It's so okay to do those things. I don't think it's a recipe. I don't think it's an instruction on to be you. Just don't harm other people while doing it. Don't try to take from someone else while trying to stand true in who you are. It's not complex, guys. I really don't think it's a situation that has to be drawn out into something more than it is. I think it's important for us to just stand in our true selves while also respecting the person standing next to us.
I think that's beautifully said. I will say that as someone in my 50s, I feel like this separation of multiracial from Black is a really recent thing. And it feels like something as the mother of in fact, I forget my children are technically biracial because that's not how they see themselves, but they technically are. It's like when I was growing up, there was always a couple of biracial kids around, and you never even knew that they were biracial because they were Black. I feel like the internet does a lot of good, social media does a lot of good, but it also has done a lot of harm in that it has created this like sense of like, well, where do I fit? And I think that what you said spoke beautifully to it. Like when you look at the history of Black Americans, particularly, I'm going to speak direct descendants of enslaved Africans, we exist in a multitude of colors for a reason, because slave masters raped our grandmother's great-grandmother. So like technically we're all mixed. Okay, that's how we all look different shades. We're not all the same shade of Black. So I think it's a matter of just like having that pride in yourself. And I think anybody who's truly about Black community and Black unity, you are in the community. That's just the way I see it. And on that note, that was our last question. The next portion of the show, I believe we will kind of go, whoop. Is there a question over there?
Do we have time for one more?
Oh. Gentleman in the red.
Hi, my name is Greg Jean-Baptiste. Born in Haiti and grew up in New Hampshire. My question was a little bit to expand on a point that Antonio made in terms of wealth transfer and how I believe could be part of the solution to a lot of the questions that we've asked today. And I wanted hopefully to expand on that and see what financial literacy is a solution for a lot of the questions that we mentioned today. And I hope you guys can expand on that a little bit in terms of wealth transfer.
I think the simple put is if I'm standing in Morocco and India, I was like checking into a hotel and I heard the OJs playing. And I'm talking about the OJs when my grandmother was making salmon croquettes and rice and a homemade biscuits. And I learned something. One of the greatest exports of America is Black culture. It is exported around the world. But when you come to Martin Luther King Drive, it is a shame there is no recreation, there are no facilities for preventative care, and then you blame the people for that. You cannot expect people to be underemployed, overworked, and committed as a citizen. If you want people to get engaged, pay them what they're worth. Give them back their joy. Help them go to see their kids at lunch instead of working just to put their kids through school only to come through their graduation. What we've got to decide is that the citizenry, the commonwealth of this country, is more than just a job. It's about having enough resources to do one thing, to be present in life, to experience each other. As an entrepreneur, I got on a plane yesterday, working on a Saturday, only to go home to work. I've worked every day this year with no breaks. That's likely because funding's not coming my way. Clients are sometimes hard to get. So you have to fight for the scraps. We're gonna have to move in this wealth transfer from our labor doing the work to our dreams and our relationships giving us the bandwidth to actually live and be human beings.
Thank you. I think we're going to wrap up this portion of the show, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. Let's give another hand to our presenters and panelists today. Great, great. And now is that time for you to actually do the work. So if you noticed on every table, there are the note cards, right? Everyone should have an individual note card. On that note card is the following question. What will stay with you from this conversation when you go home today? We would like for each table to select a note taker, and the note taker, your job is to put everyone's comments onto the Post-it notes, and then at the end of our work session, we're going to ask the note takers to place those Post-it notes onto the pads that are in the back and the one here in the front there, right? So this is the time to really network, engage with each other, to build, to create, to do the work so that the learnings that we've had today doesn't just stay here in this room. And as a professor, I will be coming around to check, right? So don't be trying to get up and go to the bathroom. I'm watching. But if you do need to relieve, take a quick break, that is fine. But please come back to enjoy the conversation at the individual tables. Do you have any questions before I let you go? Yes, so please write on the Post-it notes. The note taker will write on the Post-it notes, and every individual, you can use your own individual card to write your note. Did you understand me, Dr. Broughton? Okay, good deal, good deal. All right, get to work, and I will be back to check in with you. Hello, hello, hello. Okay. So I've been seeing some lively discussion. I'm very, very impressed with everything. What I would like to do now is give an opportunity for the groups to kind of share and report back what were your key takeaways that you will be taking home with you today. And if you don't participate, that means lunch will take longer to get to. So this is the last activity before lunch. But we really would like to just hear, what were your key takeaways? Let's start with my table in the back that I was with. We had some interesting conversations. Hey, Sean, could we get the music turned down? Thank you.
Hi, everyone. So our table really, the conversation surrounded around what did leave us alone really mean. And so we spent some time talking about, what does it look like policing community versus sustaining community and supporting community. And we had some folks who had some great examples of what that means in terms of understanding culture, understanding when something needs to be built up and not tore down, and just knowing when, you use your white privilege for good, when to use that to help broaden communities, and when to turn it off. So that was us.
Thank you, thank you. Appreciate it. Any other groups would like to report back?
Really?
Before I start calling. All right, Dr. Brawden in the back there.
We also had the leave it alone, but we're going to leave it alone at this minute. But we had talked about individual and collective capabilities to create accountability. So we need individuals, but we also need communities to agree upon things in order to get things done. But we had one interesting factor that came out. How do we get young white men to engage when they feel that things are being taken away from them? How do we get them to stop some of the things that they're doing and understand that they can truly benefit as well when everybody benefits? So that's one of the things that we looked at and had a lot of discussion around. And we also had one about, we have to become the employers to help our community. So we've got to support entrepreneurs. We've got to make sure that we are buying from those who are trying to support the communities. So we'll leave it at that and let everyone else get it.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yes, this 17 here.
We got one right here.
Oh, we're going to go there? Okay, perfect. Didn't see you.
You're pointing at me over there. Okay, cool. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Vadik Kuumba, and I'm representing Table 16. We had a conversation, was really struck by the panel discussion this morning. It was amazing. And there was this range of conversation from like the historic to the future. And so like that really guided our conversation, where we talked about the future being the young people, and how do we build these pipelines of how do we support our young people to step into leadership, and connecting the idea of this Black future and interdependence. And there was like a lovely drawing, like a Venn diagram that we kind of talked about, and how we're connected, and thinking about how these systems like really tear us apart. And thinking about how we have the powers that we already need, right? There's so many systems that are around us. We talk about Trump, we talk about all these different administrations and the military and all these industrial complexes that have been set against us, right? But we're still here. Like one of the panelists said, like it's a miracle that we're here in this space. So really wanted to continue that miracle. And then thinking about rest, thinking about self-actualization, right? How are we creating spaces like in the now, but then also in the not too distant future where we're not having to be on the front lines fighting in the same type of ways, in the same fights that our ancestors were fighting in. So that was the conversation that was happening here in our space.
Perfect. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We'll go here now.
Hi, yeah. So we're all from St. Anselm College, and we kind of focused more on kind of where Antonio talked about, like, I'm not going to be a black face in a high place. And I think that really hit, and that was really important because obviously coming from a PWI, like my freshman year, I'm a senior now, so, and a lot of these, you guys got a little bit of time left, but you know, kind of being a senior now and looking back and being like, wow, there are so many more people on color than there were my freshman year. But as a community, even within the people of color, like there's so much divide. And it's like, why is there that divide? And we kind of emphasize the importance of like, we have to work as a community because at the end of the day, we're a minority amongst a majority. And it sucks because as a senior, like I want to leave St. A's with a legacy of like, it's gonna get better. Like people aren't gonna look at you in class when there's subjects. So I'm a criminal justice major and every time prisons get brought up, like they're looking at me and it's like, for what? Like why? Why am I the image that you guys have to see? And it sucks. So we kind of just talked about like the importance of being a community, sticking together and just acknowledging that while it does suck, like how can we, in a PWI, see a black future for all of us? Because me being an Afro-Latino, like a lot of people are like, oh, you're not black. And I'm like, what is Afro-Latino? Like, are we not hearing it in the title? So you know what I mean? And you have white Hispanics, black Hispanics, like it's all a range. And that's the problem is we are not acknowledging as a community that like we might all not look exactly the same, but we share a common value. Like they're gonna judge me just as much as they're gonna judge you. So, yeah.
Thank you for that. Appreciate the vulnerability. Our next table there.
We talked about how the systems in this country have never actually been just, and yet somehow they are being destroyed on further levels, and about how the narrative changes the conversation. The narrative changes the conversation from the perspectives that we come from and from the perspectives that we're moving towards. We also talked about how we understand the world is impacted and how people need to get involved and engaged in things that don't always directly impact them and all of us. Because we all come from different perspectives, but we're all doing this as one community. There are so many communities within communities. As you all are just talking about, from the perspective of students and from different backgrounds, and there's so many ways that we are all different, and then so many ways that we are all part of the same place and the same time and the same moment.
Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing. Where are we going to next? The
Can I
learning
just add
is good.
one
Yeah,
thing?
please.
One of the things that I've faced several times in talking with people, and one of the things that we talked about is that people don't care about other people. Not everybody, but the vast majority of people care about themselves. And when I talk with them, or when my wife and I talk to people, it's like, well, my life hasn't changed at all in the last 10 months or in the last however. So really, like, it's not important to me. But I don't know how anybody can look at the news today and not be affected
Thank you for that. Appreciate that vulnerability. It's so important. This is the space to do that. Brave space. Any other groups? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, hi. Off of that note, is just bringing up truth. At our table, we have people like feeling sadness, literally feeling grief, but still having hope. I think that's what comes from telling the whole truth. I think that's what we also talked on the panel, like being able to acknowledge everything, seeing the whole picture is exactly how we're able to move forward into something. And I think most of us at this table are mostly students here at SNU, so we were also talking about needs, like things that we want to do moving forward. Also, it came with talking about like where we were from, the things that we didn't have that we want to have now, when it came to necessity of like gentrification, fixing that, when it came to food, and we came to the things that we need to like feel like we can thrive and like enjoy the fruits of our labor. That comes with having the resources that we need first. Education was something we talked about. Yes, exactly, and that comes with financial literacy, with getting wealth for it to be transferred into our generation, and then we can now make it for others. We're just thankful, again, for an opportunity like this to talk about things like this. We're also, everyone at this table is in New Hampshire or have been in New Hampshire for a minute, so thinking about BLM New Hampshire as well, like the things that we have tangibly in our state, that what can we do, what are the places where we can support, or we can support other Black and brown people who need what they need. So yeah, just having the opportunities. I want to know a little bit about what they have in store also, or what they have been doing for us, so that we know a little bit more about what we have access to. We have authority that we don't claim, or that we don't tap into because of feeling so fatigued, but we need to be reminded that our community, our love that we have for each other doesn't die out. So like to be able to lean on each other is so important.
Thank you. Thank you. And the table in the back there?
Okay, we talked about, it was great seeing the young, our young people on stage, and hearing and seeing how engaged they were. And we were wondering how to keep all the young people engaged, because we think that there's more young people that just stand by and don't do anything. And so it's nice to see how do you motivate them to do, to do what you all were doing on stage, the group. And the other thing we're worried about is that we're worried about the same fatigue. There's a few people who really does all of the, trying to motivate others, and we're worried that how do you keep others motivated and get more others involved? And part of it could be one of the things we talked about is the concern for adults' children, and the possibility of them being targeted because of if they post something that's against what, the norms, or they post something against, backing LGBTQ or something like that, they kind of get targeted and stuff. And that's one thing people are worried about, same with, Latinos, things like that, So those are the things we mentioned. The other thing was declaration of interdependent, where neighbors helping each other. That's, we thought, was a key, was very important. And the last thing regarding wealth, Antonio had mentioned a lot on wealth, and one of the things we thought was in wealth, as an example, in Israel, you have 60% Palestinian and 40% Jews, but who has the money, who has the leadership? You've always have a Jewish leader there. It has a lot to do with wealth, where the money is, and wealth is what controls the power. So you really have to know what sacrifice you're willing to make for your children, your future generation, for their future, to give them a head start when it comes to money.
Thank you. Really good comments. I'm impressed. I'm really impressed. All right, all right. Okay, right here. Oh, here first? Okay, oh, sorry, yeah, I didn't see you, okay. Okay.
Yes, we also continue the theme of how to build community is important.
especially in the sense of the theme around potentially divorcing ourselves from the broader community, but also while expecting whites to do the work as well. We stated that there was sort of a contradiction there, but that contradiction was somewhat satisfied by learning to collaborate better. We believe that education is a key to improving our situation. The impacts of racism, there was surprise and acknowledgement of the impact that racism has on the physical and mental well-being of our community, and that there's a need and importance in rebuilding trust. And there's a need for intergenerational connection, which may be lost in, just the sort of internet society that we live in, and also from the perspective that we don't quite, we're still grappling with how to build that community.
Perfect, thank you. Thank you for that, appreciate it. Okay, go ahead. Give it up, give it up.
Hi, I'm representing Table 9. We were all over the place, but one of the takeaways was leave us alone, allow Black people to rest. Everyone is welcome at the table, which is connected to leave us alone. Building towards the future, and what does that look like? What will we do when we get through this stage that we're currently in? One thing that, well, several things came up, but how do we reach a variety of people if everyone thinks the same? Like you get a group together and everyone's similar and their thoughts are the same, so we need to make sure that we're inviting people that think differently so that we think differently. So we just need different thinkers at the table or in a group. And then one, don't skip the basic step, humanity. Do I love my neighbors as I love myself? What is your resistance? Continue to show up. In order to love each other, we need to love ourselves. Can't free our neighbor or country until we free ourselves. Exercise democracy. America belongs to all of us, not some of us. How do we break out of the mentality of we love each other, but? The fight is the greatest test. The fights that are ahead, racial, health, wealth, and education.
Well said. How are we on time? One more? We're good? Okay.
We have a comment from the Zoom. Brandy and Tanya spoke. This is the comment from Brandy. I really appreciated being able to talk, each of us from our different racialized perspectives, about what the internal work looks like within our racialized communities, Black and white. There was a common thread about the importance in our affinity spaces of being able to talk really honestly, vulnerably, specifically about how structural oppression shapes our worldviews, sense of identity, understandings of others, to process our emotional responses, to truthful sharing, and to envision what it would actually look like to live and practice beyond who we're taught we have to be, what we are taught we have to do, and how we're taught we have to relate.
Thank you. Appreciate the online engagement. Did we leave anyone out?
The thing about leaving us alone is bothering me. I live in a town where there are 2 Black people. We have to work together in New England, otherwise we'll not survive. So not leaving us alone is good in some communities, but I don't think it will work in New England. I was telling people at my table, in my town, there were 2 Black people. One was a lawyer, and people would come and thank me for the work that he was doing. So I tried to encourage him to do more work because I needed more compliments. So don't leave us alone. Work together with your neighbors if you live in New England.
Collaboration is key. Collaboration is key.
Thank you. Hello? So we're table number 14. My name is Melanie LeVake. We were struck by the Leave Us Alone, and to hear it from a different perspective from Mary and from Jane, who talked about being white people who went into black neighborhoods to help working as social workers. And they didn't know if they were really welcome. And somebody pointed out to Mary that, well, you are welcome because we know you wouldn't be here if you didn't want to be here. So I was touched by that, but also just the fact that we don't know each other and we won't know each other until we talk to each other. So it's really critical today. It's important that we have these conversations like we have here that are multiracial and also multi-ages. I mean, we all think differently, whether it's our race or our age, so that's really critical. I was struck by the comment that black faces in high places. I am fortunate to be the first African-American senator for New Hampshire. And thank you. But I do hope that being so, that it encourages other people to say, yes, I can be there too. And for those people who are in class and getting stares from people when they talk about prisons or slavery, I get it. But you are you. You are in college. You are educated. You are getting your education. You are on your way up. So don't let the stereotypes define you. We also talked about breaking down systems and pointed out the fact that our country was built on a Constitution, the Bill of Rights. And originally it was founded for white people. Yes, we know. But as time went on, there were more amendments that gave more and more people their well-deserved rights. And that is what we stand on. And that is what we stand by. So we should never think that we're less or expect to have less, but work together for this country that we all belong in.
Thank you. I think that is the perfect wrap-up for lunch. Jerry Ann, do you have something to say?
So you're going to announce lunch?
I will. Go ahead.
So there's some individual cards on the table. That's for the same question we'll ask you, but you're going to respond individually on those cards after the keynote address. And if you'll take a moment just to answer those survey questions, that helps us with the work we're doing, the programs that we bring to you, and the conversations that we want to be in discussion with. But that's after the keynote address. And we're looking forward to that keynote address, which should be very dynamic and interesting. And back to you for
All
lunch.
right.
Director.
It is time for lunch, finally. But before we go to lunch, can I just have the students from St. A's to stand and the students from SNHU to stand? All right. So students, look around at all the people that are here to support you. We counting on you. I made it, I have Social Security, so brother needs you. Thank you, students, for being here. On that note, we're going to have the table 17 here to go first, if you could. And it's wonderful food buffet style, so help yourself. There's plenty for everyone. And can we get table 14 as well? So 17 and 14 are going to the front to eat. And your table numbers are on your table on the little yellow tag by the plants. I think they figured it out. They figured it out. And plus, I'm going to start going around. We're getting off the stage.